Despite their surprising early season success, the Atlanta Falcons defense faces its toughest test yet against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football.
You are Locked On Falcons, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, everyone, to another illustrious episode of the Locked On Falcons podcast, your daily Atlanta Falcons podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use all across the FanDuel app. So on today's Locked On Falcons, we'll talk about, how much of this is a prove-it game for both the Falcons offense and defense heading into this Week 6 Monday night matchup against the Buffalo Bills. We'll talk about if, this defense needs to step up in order to be taken seriously, whether or not this offense can finally start living up to the preseason hype as they try to build off of a 34-point output in their last matchup. And we'll talk more about some X factors and keys to victory in this Monday night matchup with, of course, our guest, Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. But I am, of course, your very humble host, Aaron Freeman. Been covering the Falcons for almost 2 decades, formerly at falcfans.com, RIP. Still going strong here on this podcast. And I thank each and every one of you that go strong with me as everydayers. That means you make this podcast your first listen each and every day. And all you got to do to become an everydayer is subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. So, Jarvis, I want to talk about the defense. I've been slow to hype up how well the Falcons defense has performed in this first month of the season because, in part, we've seen the Falcons defense get off to fast starts a couple of years ago on Ryan Nielsen, and around Week 6, after things didn't look as hot. We know that historically in the NFL, defenses tend to start the season a little faster than offenses, and some of it may or may not have to do with teams refusing to play guys in the preseason, but we're not going to get into that on today's episode. But I feel like, Jarvis, this is kind of the game and this stretch of games coming up for the Falcons defense against some, capable offenses, capable quarterbacks, capable offensive coordinators is, to me, kind of the prove-it ground to see just how legit this defense is. Is it one of the better defenses in the NFL as they've shown in the first month, at least statistically? Can they prove that on the football field? What say you?
I think this is I think you need to come over to the dark side. It'll be the dark side for you, and be a believer, man. And here's why I say you need to be a believer. Not only are the Falcons better at rushing the passer, they're also a little bit better in taking the ball away. Like, we've seen that, right? And I think that as long as you have those two things being consistent, and it's been pretty consistent, right? Through the first 4 games of the season, I feel like this is something that you can get on board with. And I think because of the players that they have, the young guys, they have guys got the old heads, and it's so weird to say old head. Jesse Bates, the old head, in the back end of this defense. Then you have Isaiah Watts, who's gonna take the ball away. You got Billy Bowman, who's kind of been a little quiet a little bit lately. He has the ability to take the ball away as well. So I think you couple that with all of the guys that you're throwing at, these opposing offensive line, I think that's a recipe for sustainable success. Not to say that I'm not sitting up here saying they're going to be one of the best defenses in the league or they're going to be top in yardage at the end of the year. But I will say, like, they do have the tools, they have the assets, and we have tangible evidence as well that they can sustain this. And that's all you ask. You don't ask them guys to get 6 sacks every game and all that stuff. You just ask that they have that sustainable production throughout the entire season. And of course, you want to have a lot more peaks than valleys.
Yeah, I think you're right in the sense that the promise of this Falcons defense to me was a significantly improved pass rush. Sure. And a defense that could take the ball away. And I think you're right in the sense of the Falcons have delivered on that promise. I think for me, it's just where are they exactly? Like, no doubt this defense is significantly better this year than what we've seen from previous Falcons defense. I guess for me, I'm just a little reluctant, as I'm always, Jarvis, as you put out there, to fully buy into the Atlanta Falcons until I see you. What do you look like against a premier quarterback, right? You saw them have a lot of success slowing down that Bucs offense in week 1 against Baker Mayfield, who's been balling out this year, but Baker made some big time throws in that game to help that Bucs team win the game. I'm curious to see what they do against Josh Allen and this Bills offense. We've talked before about the run defense. How does that fare against James Cook? You know, we've talked before about some of the struggles that they've had in terms of containing mobile quarterbacks. How does that fare against a player like Josh Allen's caliber? And so it's just kind of dialing in terms of like just how good, how much faith, how much trust do I have in this defense? And to me, it's still a TBD. It's certainly way more trust than what we have seen from the past, where before I would be like, yeah, man, you know, play the Bills, they're going to give up 40 points in this game. But I'm like, now it's like, you know, I think they can keep the Bills in the 20s, right? And to me, if they can do that, I think that's a winnable game for this Falcon team. So to me, this game is going to go a long way to kind of figuring out for me if this defense is legit or not, in the sense of being that defense that can go up against some of the best quarterbacks, some of the best offenses in the league, and be able to deliver on a consistent basis.
So I think you make an interesting point. Like you talk about James Cook. I think that's kind of a person that can get lost in the sauce when it's talking, especially when you're talking about the reigning MVP of the league and Josh Allen. And I think the Bills do some very interesting things when it comes to like they run some heavy old school 13 personnel. Aaron, they have a fullback. How about that? That notion. Like they just line up and hey man, we don't care that we're tipping off that we about to run the football. We're gonna run the football, and they're running out of the gun as well. So they run from a lot of varied formations. And you know me, man. When I started seeing the heavy, the 13 personnel, you know, you got 3 tight ends, you got Josh Allen. I was just like, man, I don't know about this one. You get into that base defense, I think that, you know, the Falcons, you know, at farewell, like you mentioned on the squad show, they fared well doing those things. But I'm gonna crossover with Joe. I will listen. Got a chance to check that out. I think they fared well in that base defense, but they're gonna have to get used to that. If this is a game where the Bills feel like, or I mean, this would be a great situation for us covering this team. If they feel like they want to limit possessions for this Falcons offense because they feel like their defense is not a great matchup for them, they could possibly do that, especially if the Falcons offense isn't putting up points early, like Tanitra mentioned on our squad show earlier in this week. So I feel like this is going to be very interesting how this game plays out, because you got the defense trying to bring people like you on. I mean, I'm not saying I'm fully sold, but I am liking what I'm seeing. And, you know, potentially limiting, you know, a guy like Josh Allen, because you can't stop him. You know, we've come to that conclusion. You can't stop him. But if you can kind of take away one of his superpowers and scrambling for first downs on 3rd and long, if you could take away just that one element of this game, I feel like this defense is going to be in good shape.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I am not 100% sold on the defense, but certainly I am definitely sold that this is a defense that is formidable. And to me, it's like to me with the pass rush, like that's another element that I think will be interesting, because the Bills' offensive line has been one of the best in the league when it comes to limiting pressure. And you know, when you give a quarterback of Josh Allen's caliber time to throw, good luck, you know. So
there's no limit to where he could throw the football, dog.
Yeah,
like, he could throw that mug 60 down the field, dog.
Yeah.
Like, that's not out of his arsenal. You know what I'm saying? That's what makes it so scary, man.
Yes. Especially like late in the down when you give him that time where he has no qualms about like, hey, you know, Keon Coleman's down there somewhere, you know.
I'll take it. I'll take a shot. Why
Yeah.
not?
So I feel like that's a big element to me in this game is like, is this because we saw the Falcons pass rush get off to a very hot start in those first two games, and then it's kind of cooled off a little bit, and I kind of want to see them get another sort of spike and trend upward, and I think that would be a huge part to being, if you could do that against one of the better offensive lines in football and one of the better quarterbacks in football, to be able to put that pressure on him, I think that will be a huge boost and give me the confidence to actually come on a podcast and praise the Atlanta
comfort. Yes. Yes. It's all about giving free comfort. When it comes to the Atlanta Falcons. Come on now.
Yes. Yeah. That's what it's about. It's about the content, ladies and gentlemen. It's about what will I say on the podcast. That what happens on a Sunday or Monday night is irrelevant. It's about what is going to be said on this podcast. But we have more things to say on this podcast as we continue, and we'll flip to see if this offense can potentially keep pace with a Bills offense that typically scores 30-plus points in a game. And if the Falcons need to do that, should their defense not necessarily come to play at a high level, and how do they do that? And we'll get into all of that, guys, as we continue today's Locked On Falcons. Now, when the opening whistle blows on a new repair, you got to get your crew moving forward with Supply House. Order today and see the parts on your doorstep tomorrow. With over 280,000 plumbing, HVAC, and electrical items from the most trusted brands in the business. Their real-time inventory over at Supply House and honest lead times are going to keep you from punting projects, while their industry-leading customer service always has your blind side protected. Supply House will save you time on your next project. If you need parts fast, they have next day delivery, and their part finder tools and 3D schematics can save you hours on jobs where every detail matters. And it's not just the time you save, it's the money too. If you join their Trade Master program today, you can score serious perks like priority shipping, lower prices, and a dedicated support line. So visit supplyhouse.com to sign up for free, and make sure you use promo code SHNFL5 and you'll get 5% off your first order. Again, that's SHNFL5 over at Supply House. Real people, real service. Continuing with today's Locked On Falcons, here with Jarvis Davis of Locked On Sports Atlanta. Basically, Jarvis, do you feel like, as someone who has been pushing the 26, 27, 28 plus points per game, a Bills offense that I think led the league last year in scoring with like 31 points a game, and this year I think is like top 3 in the league with like 32, 33, something like that, last I checked, points per game. Feels like, again, obviously we'll hope to see the Falcons defense, keep a lid on this, but it feels like there's a real possibility, if not probability, that this Falcons offense is going to have to even exceed your expectations of 28 points per game and potentially get to 30-plus points per game in order to win this game. Do you agree with that notion? And if so, how do you think this team is best equipped to be able to put up that type of production?
Yeah, I'm all in for them dropping 30 plus. I mean, you're at home. Like, the elements are in your favor. We talked about the communication piece early on the Falcon Squad show. Is you were able to put up 34 points. Not saying that was the sole reasoning for that. The quarterback played out of his mind. He completed 70% on completion rate, right? So, when you have that and you're hitting those big plays, you're getting those chunk plays, those explosives, those are some of the things that help get you there. And I think that them being at home against a team like the Buffalo Bills, who are averaging 33 points a game. Yes. So, yes, you're going to have to get 30, because I don't see this Bills offense having another stinker like they did last week against the New England Patriots. Because that was, you talking about flat penalties, turn the ball over. It was just so many different things going on in that game that I don't see that happen in back-to-back games, because that's just not how Sean McDermott works as a head coach. Like, they normally bounce back pretty good in a good way when they have game performances like that. So I think that this offense is going to have to give us a 30 piece. And they do that by taking advantage of that man coverage that they're going to get. Because the reason why I say they're going to get it is because they're going to try to put another man in that box. They have to have another body in that box to make the tackle after Bijan Robinson makes that first person miss, because he's going to do that. That's just those are the facts of the case, right? You're gonna get some of that blue magic. That first person gonna get that blue magic. You're not gonna be able to handle it, and he's gonna move on. So they're gonna have to bring that safety down in that box, and then somebody is going to have man-to-man coverage. And I think that when you look at it from that aspect of it, if you're able to take advantage of, you don't have to hit it every time. You don't have to hit it every time. If you can take advantage maybe like 2 or 3 times though, like that can propel you to that 30 plus points. And I think that, with the elements being at home, you having a new communication system and being able to communicate with your offensive coordinator when the defense is on the field, all of those factors work out in your favor. They work out in your favor. So yes, it's not out of the realm for them for us to expect them to put that 30 plus points up in this game.
Yeah, and potential is there that they might have to do that without Darnell Mooney, who's been their most explosive weapon. We got the update on Thursday from Raheem Morris that Mooney is not practicing on Thursday. We'll see how the rest of the week unfolds. For those of you that don't know, normally we have the Wednesday practice for a Sunday game, we have the Thursday practice for a Monday game. So we'll find out Mooney's official status for this Monday night game on Saturday, as opposed to Friday in a normal week. So we'll see on that front, but didn't sound overly optimistic that Darnell Mooney will be coming back off of that hamstring injury that he suffered recently. But I'm curious, Jarvis, if the Falcons don't have Mooney as that guy, and that was something I talked about with Joe Marino of Locked On Bills on yesterday's crossover, which is when you go back and you look at the types of receivers that typically give the Bills the most struggles, it's the quick, fast, separator type of guys. You saw that most recently with Stephon Diggs in that Patriots win over the Bills last Sunday night. That's the type of receiver that Darnell Mooney is. And so I'm curious if Darnell Mooney is not the guy that's generating those explosive plays down the field for the Falcons. Who do you feel like is the guy best positioned to step up to do that? Is that Casey Washington? Is that Drake London? Is that Kyle Pitts? Is that somebody else that you feel like kind of has to, fill the Darnell Mooney size void in this offense should Mooney not be available Monday night?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a combination of guys. I like Casey Washington. I like him stepping into that role. I still have some belief in Ray McCloud being effective on this offense, right? Because he's that guy that has the speed, he has the wiggle, to be able to give you something to be able to get deep in it. So I feel like that's going to have to be the connection, because Drake already has his role. He has to be wide receiver 1. He has to be that guy in motion, working it how they were able to work it against the Washington Commanders. So I think that you're talking about a guy who can potentially is going to get a favorable matchup, right? They're going to get that favorable matchup. I think that Ray McCloud and Casey Watkins kind of fall into that category of, okay, here's a guy that the quarterback has some he's in sync with, right? In Casey Washington last year, working with the second team and stuff like that. So I think those are the two guys that I look to. Not saying I'm expecting them to, but those are the guys you have to look to if a guy like Darnell Mooney isn't able to go.
Yeah, so we'll see if Casey Washington or Ray McCloud can sort of step up and be that sort of X factor in this game. But we'll talk a little bit more about X factors as well as other keys to victory if the Falcons are going to find a way to get this upset win against Buffalo, being 4.5 point underdogs as we wrap up today's Locked On Falcons. So like I said, the Falcons are 4.5 point underdogs against the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football. And if you're feeling good about the Falcons' ability to cover that spread, then why not head on over to FanDuel? And even if you're feeling bad about the Falcons' ability to cover that spread, why not head on over to a FanDuel? And FanDuel has this can't miss offer where new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you can unlock $300 in bonus bets to use all across the app, whether it's betting against the spread, whether it's a money line bet, a straight up bet, whether you're looking at a same game parlay where you bet a little, win a lot, or you're looking at a player prop. You're looking at this Falcons defense shutting down Josh Allen over under 33.5 rushing yards for Josh Allen over at FanDuel. Take advantage. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. So, Jarvis, we talked about sort of X factors on both offense, defense, and special teams on Thursday's Falcons Squad show with myself, yourself, Tanitra Batiste. Obviously, we'll be having more conversations on the Falcon Squad show come Monday morning, and Monday night. So you guys got 2 more squads coming your way between now and the end of that Bills game. And obviously, we'll have that hour-long post-game Monday evening, and thankfully the schedule makers had the doubleheader. The Falcons get the earlier doubleheader, so won't have to stay up to 2-3 in the morning like we have done for some of these primetime games. I can get to bed to maybe 1 o'clock, and so that's a reasonable time for old men like me who can't hang out like they once used to, except for when it's on bye weeks and whatnot. But
Yes.
yeah. That being said, Jarvis. That being said, Jarvis. I think what are some of the things that when you're looking at this game that we've discussed, the need to run the football and generate the explosive plays on offense, whether it's stop the run with James Cook, contain Josh Allen, some of the vertical stuff. What are some of the other things that stand out to you that you think this team needs to be able to do come Monday night, that so when we do that post game Monday evening, that we will be talking about this Falcon team getting away?
I think Jeff Ulbrich needs to be very strategic in the type of coverage, going back and forth between man and zone. What I mean when I say that is that I feel like the thing that I'm most afraid of is not the 80-yard bomb arm that he has. It's that doggone extending plays and getting first downs with his legs, man. Non-call runs. That is what Josh Allen is going to do, and he did it with ease, even in that Patriots game. As a matter of fact, I can make a case that was probably one of the main reasons why they were still in that game, towards the end, all the way up until the end of that bad boy. So for me, that is Jeff Ulbrich is going to have to determine whether or not, okay, when do I want to play man? When is it to my advantage to play man? When is it to my advantage to play zone? Can I put Jesse Bates in a situation where he can get that ball? He can confuse Josh a little bit. Are we going to do the mug look with Caden Ellis and Divine Diablo? Is Divine Diablo going to be that guy, right? To make a play. I thought that was a great pull on the Falcon squad. You're talking about X factors and guys who could potentially have an impact on this game. Like, can those linebackers be the guys to say, okay, coach, yeah, I need some rushes this game, because I feel like there is a spot on this offensive line that I could take advantage of. It's specifically rushing up the middle, because that pressure up the middle is a mother blanket for all quarterbacks. I don't care who you are. Tom Brady despised it. Drew Brees couldn't handle it. There are just too many guys that get that pressure, right, that immediate pressure in their face. That's why Aaron Donald was such a terror on this league, because he was right there in front, right there. He ain't running that loop at the edge position. He is right there in that shade, in that 3 technique, or that 1, depending on what defense they were, because it seemed like they changed defenses every other year, but it didn't matter because Aaron Donald was going to do what he does. So yeah, I think that's the big thing for me. Jeff Ulbrich understanding, like, okay, let's play around with this thing. I'm man here. I'm going to zone here. Let me put my players in position to succeed, because I feel like those second and third level guys on this defense will have to be the reason why this defense has success against Josh Allen.
Yeah, I agree. And for those of you that missed the Falcon Squad show, we talked about some X factors. We talked about Kyle Pitts and Drake London on offense. We talked about Divine Diablo and Xavier Watts on defense. We talked about Bradley Pinion in the return game, winning that field position battle. So if you want to get more insights into those things, go check it out on the Falcon Squad, which of course you can find on Locked On Falcons and Locked On Sports Atlanta on your YouTube platforms as well as your audio feeds everywhere. But another factor that I think will be interesting to watch in this game, because this is the thing about an NFL season, Jarvis, is like every time you think, oh, like I figured out this team, it's like, well, they got another test coming, right? And so like I think the Falcons offensive line and our pass protection has gotten off to a much more impressive start than a lot of people had going into the season. Jarvis, that those 2 weeks after Caleb McGarry's injury between the start of the season, there's a lot of doom and gloom. There was a lot of panic with folks when it came to, oh my God, is Michael Penix going to be murdered because Elijah Wilkinson is playing right tackle? Elijah Wilkinson still is the weakest link on the Falcons offensive line, but he has outperformed, I think, certainly the most dire expectations, and he's been a solid sort of replacement for Caleb McGarry, impacting the running game and not being a massive liability when it comes to pass protection. But there are some challenges against this Bills team. Greg Rousseau, Joey Bosa. Joey Bosa is not quite the same Joey Bosa that he was in his prime, but that's a very technical pass rusher, Jarvis. And if you can beat the hands, you can beat the man, and Joey Bosa can still beat the hands, even if he doesn't have quite the same juice that he had in his prime. And so I'll be very curious to see how this offensive line holds up against this Bills defensive line. I don't know quite yet if Ed Oliver is going to be back for this game. The early reports earlier in the week didn't seem to be that optimistic, but obviously we'll find out more.
He can stay where he at.
Yeah. So I'll be curious to see if this offensive line continues to outperform those expectations going up against a pretty solid, by no means elite Bills pass rush, but a really solid Bills pass rush that is a big part of why they've been, so consistent on defense over the years, because they can get steady pressure.
Yeah, man. When you think about not only not Nick Bosa, Joey Bosa. I don't know. I just want to say Nick. Just want to say Nick Bosa. But Joey Bosa, and you have guys like Greg Rousseau, who I really like, coming out as a prospect as well. Also throw Matt Epinesa in that conversation as well. He can get after it a little bit. So when you think about a combination of those edge guys, Greg Rousseau rushes from that side. Like he and Elijah Wilkinson are going to get after it. Like they're gonna run up against each other quite often. And I think that this is another test for Elijah Wilkinson, for those detractors, of those people who said, hey man, they need to go out and trade somebody right now. No, the Falcons are in a space where they have some depth. Now, I don't want to bring this up. Now, if you have another injury on the offensive line, that's a whole nother conversation, whole nother show. I don't even want to get into that. But this is another test for Elijah Wilkinson to prove to a lot of people in this fan base that, hey, I deserve to be here as a backup. I'm not saying I'm a starting caliber player. I mean, he is now, right? That's what it is. Yeah, it is what it is in life sometimes. But there is some drop off when you're talking about going from Caleb McGarry and what he brings to the table in the run game, to a guy like Elijah Wilkinson, who's kind of bounced around the league for a few years. So for me, I feel like those guys, and to be honest with you, when it comes to what Sean McDermott defense does, those guys rush for pretty often, right? They're pretty consistent with that. They'll bring pressure from time to time, but when you talking about being consistent in what they do, they rush for. So yeah, it's going to be, hey man, like you should be able to block Greg Rousseau pretty consistent. Like he's not a fire breather by no means, but he will take advantage of you because he got that length. He got, and he can get off and he can get after it. So I think that's going to be a one of those matchups, man v man, to keep an eye on, especially because what you have in that particular situation is a guy that stepped in for a backup who's been playing well, you want to continue to see him do that.
Yeah, yeah. And part of the reason why I bring it up is for promotion, because one of the things breaking down for the Locked On Falcons insiders coming off the bye week is taking a deeper look at Elijah Wilkinson and going back and looking at some of the pressures he's given up. He's been a little susceptible to the bull rush when it comes to giving up some of that pressure, and a guy like you say with Greg Rousseau's length can certainly challenge in that arena. And so it'll be interesting to see how Wilkinson holds up over these next couple of weeks. Thankfully Nick Bosa is not going to be playing next week, but Mykel Williams certainly can bring some juice when it comes to the bull rush. And so that gets back to what I was saying earlier, where it's just like you reach a certain point and you feel, okay, I feel pretty good about Elijah Wilkinson, but hey, there's still going to be challenges every single week that you're going to have to overcome. And especially for a player like Elijah Wilkinson, who is fighting that uphill fight, as you say, to prove himself. I think, he'll be able to.
A lot of people like that on this team, seemingly.
Yes. That has been kind of the story of the 2025 Falcons. A lot of, prove it guys. It seems like, Jarvis, that kind of happens when you go 7+ years without winning seasons and whatnot.
Yeah,
so you gotta prove yourself.
When you think about it, man, when you've had to brace the suck as a fan base, so it's kind of see it before till you believe it. It's almost like, oh man, I hate to go down this road as we about to get ready to wrap up this show. It's almost like the cheating husband. You know what I'm saying? Like that cheating husband said, babe, I ain't gonna cheat on you no more. I promise. This is my last time. I ain't gonna do it. I love you. I want us to be together. I want us to do it. But until you come up against those tests and you pass those tests, she ain't gonna believe nothing you got to say, Jack. She gonna be looking at your actions. So yeah, and it's the same way when it comes to ball, especially the Falcons. Because, oh Lord, there are so many guys that you can say, hey, man, I see it when I believe it. And Elijah Wilkins is one of those guys. But thankfully, he's passed the test for this first month of the season. So we'll see.
Yeah. And, you got Taquan Graham potentially coming back from IR.
That's a good one, too.
You don't have Storm Norton. And I think a lot of people were like, oh, no, by the time we get to week 6, everybody's going to be like, when's Storm Norton coming back? And Elijah Wilkinson is quieted all that talk. So,
sure.
He deserves credit for that. But again, we still got a lot of football left to be played. So we'll see how he and the rest of this Falcon team, do they rise up or do something else? Come Monday night, we will certainly be talking about it Monday morning on another Falcon Squad. And, of course, for that hour-long post game, come Monday evening after that final whistle on your Falcon Squad on Locked On Sports Atlanta and, of course, on Locked On Falcons, in addition to the full solo 30-minute rapid reaction here on Locked On Falcons. So a full hour and a half, right? You got 3+ hours of football action and an hour and a half of post-game reaction. Your Monday night is stacked, ladies and gentlemen. And all you got to do is follow Locked On Falcons and Locked On Sports Atlanta on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. And in the meantime, if you want to get the scoop on this Sunday's action, as you have another stress-free Sunday, because you don't have to worry about the Falcons until Monday morning, go check out Locked On NFL, 2 shows daily that will get you geared up for all the week 6 action. It's all part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.